We explain the impact of the Romans on history. With such a large empire, Rome made significant contributions to the modern world. It covered roughly 3.5 million square miles and held a population of over 50 million. Its reliance on order gave us large cities that in turn became the centers of spreading and preserving culture, law, and language, and gave us both Latin in the west and Greek in the east. Its ability to reach out and trade with places as far distant as China helped create the Silk Road and cultural diffusion between West and East. Also important were the farming techniques it developed. Farming was done by a majority of people in the Republic and the Empire, dominated by large estates called latifundia, who also employed slave labor for raising livestock. Much of the poor and middle class of Rome depended heavily on the excessive habits of the rich to find work or handouts, although even small farmers would have slaves. In fact, Rome had a heavy reliance on slaves, which they could easily get from all of their conquests. Especially prized were Greek slaves, who could use their vast knowledge to serve as artists, musicians, and tutors. Romans recognized them, of course, by their beards, which Romans themselves refused to wear at first, until Emperor Hadrian wore one to hide his scars. Roman slaves were often treated horribly with severe punishments. The Spartacus slave revolts of 71 BC, in which 70,000 slaves rose up to win several battles before being slaughtered, demonstrates the conditions slaves lived under and were willing to revolt under. Many citizens chose to live in the city of Rome, 1 million at the beginning of the empire. The city was very crowded and very noisy, especially since carts and wagons were only allowed to operate at night. It was also apparently very dangerous. The writer Juvenal wrote about having to write a will just to go out to dinner, because while you're walking along, someone would dump water or trash or furniture on you from the windows above. The apartments, known as insulae, were very crowded together and often made of wood. Because there were so many, their construction was shoddy and 6 stories high. They would either burn or collapse, that the high rents were on the bottom floors to give people quick escape. The rents from the slumlords like Cicero were high, and the rooms were cramped and hot, often one family living in one room. Luckily, the city provided lots to do outside, with public buildings, baths, temples, markets, festivals, and so much more.